Is my teen romantic comedy snafu the best romance anime? I'm the Wandering Albatross, and today is part 2 of a 3-part series where we're going to be trying to answer that very question. The first part of this series was the review segment, where I was doing a non-spoiler review of the entire series thus far. Keep in mind, I'm still currently in the middle of watching Season 3 as it's coming out. And I please do encourage you to watch that video first. Even if you've already seen the series, I still cover a lot of topics in that one I'm not going to cover here, and some just general analysis of the show and how I feel about it. But if you haven't seen the show, please go watch that part, and then decide on watching the series, then come back to this part, because this part will contain spoilers. I'm going to repeat, this part will contain spoilers. So will the third part, but this part is the one that's coming out the same day as the first part, and it will have spoilers in it. So if you do not want to get this series spoiled, and I really highly encourage you don't, go out and watch the series. It's free on Crunchyroll with advertisements, and if you already own the subscription with Crunchyroll, you can watch it that way. Just please go out and watch Snafu. It's a great series. But watch my review of it if you want a little bit more information before you end up watching it. Now, moving on, this video is going to be a little bit more in-depth discussion, like I said, spoiler stuff, just talking about some general concepts and how I feel about the show and why I love it so much. This is all pre-Season 3 resolution kind of discussion. Some of the conversation will be talking about Season 3 towards the end of this, but in general, I'm going to try to keep it mostly Season 1 and 2 centric inside this video, because there is going to be a third part where I specifically discuss Season 3 and the whole ending, and whether or not I do believe that My Teen Romantic Comedy Snafu is, in fact, the best romance anime. The basics. It's funny. This series is hilarious. I think it has a lot of really great witty humor. I just love the charisma of all the characters and how they bounce off of each other. I think there's a lot of really great interactions and character pairings inside this show. One thing that I was definitely a little bit more hesitant to latch onto myself was the jokes with Saika at first. It definitely struck me as very odd how this clearly very heterosexual male was taking so much obligatory interest in a homosexual relationship with Saika, but I think it was very much a coping mechanism. It took me off guard at first, not like as a homophobic thing, but it was just, it was very clear that he was heterosexual, and so I was very confused as to why he was like humoring the idea so much, and I didn't see any real relationship potential with the idea, but as it went on, it really just became obvious that it was just him basically coping with the fact that he's realizing that he's in this romantic comedy setting, and he is basically joking about taking the Saika route because it's the easier of the options rather than actually having to confront his feelings with the two girls in the story. And it was really funny, and I really enjoy a lot of the jokes in Season 1, especially. Season 2, the whole Saika jokes kind of fall off almost completely. I think they maybe make one of them. In Season 3, I don't think I've seen a single Saika joke in the entire season. I don't even know if I've seen Saika. Actually, he does show up in one episode. But very funny humor, and I really grew to like Saika a lot, even though I was a little confused. I didn't dislike him at first, but I was definitely confused. There's extremely great emotional pieces that have made me cry in this show. Season 3 is almost completely jam-packed full of them. We'll talk more about that once we actually talk about that one, but there's some great emotional moments in this show where they really know how to just amp up the emotional stakes and really make you feel stuff just because of the pain of the situation that everybody's in, and you know that there's no way to get out of this situation without somebody getting hurt. There's just absolutely no resolution where everyone is going to be happy, and that's just really sad, because you want at least your main character and somebody to end up being happy, right? Because that's what everybody wants, is to find happiness, but you just know someone is going to get hurt in the process no matter how this ends. And it's this emotional fear of resolution, which is really gripping, and I really love that. It's a very grounded show, too. That's actually one thing I really love about it. Season 1 is a little bit more silly in style and like visual style and stuff, but it's still a very grounded show. And compared to a lot of other rom-coms in anime, I think they really do take advantage of the fact, and that's not a negative thing, they take advantage of the fact that it is a animated series or cartoon, and so it's something that they really take advantage of is that they can be kind of outlandish and really make these crazy visuals to amplify and visualize the emotions and feelings of the characters. And so I think that is something a lot of shows do, but it is also really refreshing to see a more grounded take on it while also more subtly taking advantage of some of the more subtle aspects and advantages of being an animated series, but not having to be too obligatory or in your face about it. And I think that's really nice and a really refreshing take, and even though that this was a fairly early on endeavor of mine watching this show, but I have seen many different rom-coms since then, and this one still holds up as extremely refreshing and unique, and something that I just don't really see very much of, and I wish I did, because I think a lot of them really do sometimes dive a little bit too deep down the rabbit hole of just being really goofy and not being able to take it seriously enough. Moving on to the love triangle, which is the main appeal of Snafu, I mean, it's just unprecedented. There's never been a more tightly knit love triangle of characters. I'm just so fascinated with how they were able to make two characters that I just am so enthralled with. I really just have such a difficult time choosing between the two characters, and it really makes it believable how Hachiman is in that position, because in so many of these stories, you know, a character's facing a challenge, and it's also, in some, like, you can relate to it, you can understand, but you don't necessarily feel the same. When you're watching Snafu, you are stuck in the same seat because you don't know which one to pick yourself, because they're both such great compatible options for Hachiman. And it doesn't seem like there's an easy choice. I know that some people like to say that, there's always this easy choice, or this thing has been obvious from the start. That's just all I'm gonna say. Just screw off. You clearly are just not getting into the show or accepting every inch of what they're presenting to you, because both characters have been set up so flawlessly to have their own pros and cons. And people who have been set in stone on a single option from the beginning, I just don't think are really completely open-minded to the show or taking it in as a whole. And yet again, because you love both the characters so much of Yui and Yukino, it really does build up this fear of a resolution. Like, you want a resolution, but you also fear seeing it happen, because you know that someone is going to get hurt. There's no situation where they're going to be able to get out of this without breaking someone's heart. And it makes it extremely horrifying. It's almost like a love horror, because you're just waiting for some kind of tragedy to happen, and it's really sad and scary, but it's also really gripping, and it's very engaging. I love the narrative theme of searching for something genuine after all of Hachiman's heartbreak and pain that he's suffered through with his romantic history. Now that he's realized that he's in this love triangle predicament, that he really wants to make sure that he's getting something genuine and he's not wasting his time with something that's fake. He doesn't want the normal high school experience that everybody else is getting. That part of him still hasn't changed. While he still has changed his view and seen some positives to the high school experience, he definitely doesn't want what everyone else is having, like in terms of just a lot of fake relationships and bad scenarios people putting each other in. He wants something real. And that's something I think a lot of people do strive for, a lot more people than would be outwardly honest, or maybe that you would expect, but it's also something a lot more people should be striving for than actually are, or at least they don't commit to it half-heartedly. I also love how there is such a great narrative focus on the two primary love interests in the story. There's so many other stories where there's a lot of different love interests, especially like harems and stuff like that, where there's just a lot of diverted focus. I mean, obviously in harems, I guess that's kind of the nature of the game, but like things that aren't necessarily supposed to be harems, like one show that's a good example is Nisekoi. That show didn't start out as a harem at all. In fact, it was a very focused story within season 1, but then season 2 decided to make it just that. It just became a harem, and it's just a piece of crap now. But either way, the point is that there are definitely other, technically you could consider them love interests. There's Saika, which is more of a comedic element, but definitely is technically, objectively, a love interest. There is the teacher, which is another joking love interest, but technically it is one. You also have Saki Kawasaki, which definitely by the time of season 3 becomes a little bit more of a love interest. I think everybody had their heart stolen with this scene.
Kawasaki!
あんた何ハーハー言ってんの？
お前、前屋上にいたことあったよな。あれどうやって入ったんだ？
あんたよく覚えてるね。中央階段からの屋上の入り口、鍵壊れてるんだよ。女子の間では割と有名。 それが何なわけ？
サンキュー。愛してるぜ川崎。
That's when, at the moment where she became secret best girl, is what my friend and I like to call her. And definitely the biggest one out of everyone is Iroha, obviously. No, I'm not considering Hachiman's sister as a love interest, you frickin' freak. All of you out there who are into the brother-sister thing, I want to choke you with a spaghetti noodle. Like, just shut up and get the hell out of the video if that's really what you are interested in. That's just beyond weird. Anyways, Iroha. Now, if you find his sister cute, that's a different thing. I should stress that because I get that. But if you are actually, rooting for the sister-brother thing to be a thing, like Hachiman and his sister, just leave. Just leave. I don't even want to deal with you. Just go away, please. Just stop. I don't have time for you. Iroha, though, definitely a third love interest. And she becomes more so as time goes on, especially in Season 3. You can definitely see that there is definitely some potential there. However, the story knows that she is not a genuine love interest. Only Yui and Yukino are the two genuine love interests, and that's what Hachiman is after, is the genuine love. That's what I think is so great about this show, is despite having all these other love interests, it can easily shove in there and mix into this match. Or if it was a harem anime, you'd even have like people like Mira and whatever that crazy chick is with the glasses that like freaking bleeds a blood fountain out of her face every time that she is turned on. Those two characters would obviously be in the harem too, if this was a harem anime, but it's not. But there's just always a narrative focus on these two characters. They're always making sure that no matter how much you're kind of swaying around or how much time you spend with Iroha, it is always setting its focus on Yukino and Yui. And you can definitely tell it because even when Iroha is spending a lot of time with her and it's kind of obvious that Iroha is getting feelings for Hachiman herself, it's always twisting the focus back onto Yukino or Yui because she is either talking about them or inferring something about them or their relationship or even thinking about them. And it's always amplifying something or helping Hachiman to discover his feelings and how he wants to make a choice between those two. So it's always focusing on these two characters no matter where else you are in the story. I think that's just really great and something that needs to happen more often. It's the writers knew exactly where the focus should be, and that's where they kept it. It is on these two characters, that's where it should be, and that's where it is. It doesn't waste its time putting too much focus on anything else. And I was really worried, the only time I was ever worried is that maybe Iroha would end up becoming a legitimate third love interest, but she doesn't. She's actually used as a tool and an outlet for viewing the relationship of these two through a new outlet and through another perspective. So it's just overall the entire story has a really crisp focus, narrative focus on the two primary love interests. Another thing I just love about this show is the character designs, how grounded they are, but they are also so unique. That, like, for Hachiman, for instance, he could easily be described as a fairly generic MC, main character, because a lot of rom-com animes have a very simple, black-haired, kind of nerdy-looking dude, and the fish eyes things is actually not too uncommon either. But he has this really cool little half-moon flick on the top of his hair, which actually he shares with his sister. It's kind of a genetic thing, I'm guessing. Where it's just like a little identifying trait that he has. It's just a subtle little thing. It's very grounded. It's not anything crazy like these massive ribbons and stuff inside the hair that's just like, or these crazy hairdos that just look physically impossible to pull off. It's just a really nice little subtle thing that gives him a unique flair and makes him immediately obvious, even in the myriad of countless other anime characters in the medium and genre of rom-com in general. He still stands out and is obvious for that one little trait. And it's still very grounded. I think it's a really nice, small little trait that just really shows the attention to detail and the character design, that they can do something that subtle and still be so easily recognizable. Then you have Yui, and she has her cute little bun on the side of her head. And Yukino, which is one I actually struggled to notice for a while because I was noticing all the really unique, subtle character designs of some of the characters. Another one of my favorites is actually Mira, with her little spirals in her hair. I think that's really cute. Yukino is one that I was definitely not too aware of at first, and so I was very curious, what is Yukino's? Because I couldn't really notice it at first, because hers is expertly subtle, and that's the presence of the two little red ribbons at the back of her hair behind her ears. It's kind of hidden back in there. In a lot of scenes you don't even actually see it, so it isn't something that's super obvious, or not as obvious as Yui or Hachiman's, but it is still there, and it's definitely a little subtle thing, because in general she does have the generic black, straight, long-haired girl. You get what I mean. There's always some girl who has long, black, straight hair inside of a romance anime. So she kind of fits that generic bill, but then she has that one little quirk that gives her her own unique edge. And in season 2 and 3, she does get the trait of having a slight blue faded tint to the ends of her hair, which definitely gives her that extra bit of a unique look. But I just love how there's that subtle character design that makes them all very unique, and they stand out, but also just looks very grounded and is something that you definitely could see in the real world. I just have a couple more things I wanted to say before we get into the third part, which I will be releasing after the whole show is out, and I want to, solidify my opinions on it. I will be making the third and final part to this video, but I do have a little bit I just kind of want to say while I'm still in the mindset of before seeing the finale of Season 3. I guess I just want to get some of my thoughts out right now. I'm still happy with either of these options. Like I said, they're so tightly knit, I would really be happy with either of them ending up with Hachiman, but I'm still definitely really afraid to actually see it happen. I do want to address one little thing I've heard thrown around a whole bunch, is a bunch of people trying to discredit Yui in particular as being a compatible option for Hachiman. I think that is literally the most brain-dead observation I have ever seen of this show, just period. Some people are saying, like, oh, it's only Yukino. Yukino's the only option for him, and that it's the only way that it's going to be genuine. Yui is just not the right person for him. I could make a whole damn video explaining exactly why they're wrong, and I just might. If you guys are interested in that, please comment in the comment section below once the comments are turned back on, because like I said, I'm going to be turning the comments off on these videos until the third season's out, so I don't get any spoilers for myself or anybody else who's watching this video. Please leave a comment below if you'd like me to jump into that, because I would love to prove people wrong who think that Yui is not a compatible option. I'm going to honestly admit I'm kind of rooting for Yui. I think that she's just kind of more up my alley as a person, and I really love all this genuine time that those two have been spending together, and that is really invaluable. I'm kind of rooting for her. I'm still like just tied, but I have started to almost see myself leaning towards Yui as my favorable option. That's just for me personally. Definitely, I'm cut even. I see both of them as very viable options, and I'd be happy with either of them ending up with him. So as a little reminder, comments will be turned off on this video until Season 3 is out and I release the third and final part. Please let me know in the comment section below once I do activate those comments what you guys think of Snafu, and stay tuned for that third and final part. So thank you guys so much for watching, and keep wondering.